Do you think that's part of why, like, Pearl and I are both kind of tomboys? I'm a firearms instructor myself. I teach women basic pistol and concealed carry. And I'd say more than half of my female students do not have the hand strength to load or operate an automatic pistol. They have to use a revolver, something like that. And I think when you grow up doing boy things with boys, you understand and respect that you're not a man.
Well, and playing sports, because I played basketball for 16 years. So if I go do pickup, I gauge with guys, because I'll play with them sometimes, but I know if he played like 1 year of high school, I'm getting beat, even though I played in college.
I just want to mention the speed loader wasn't invented because women had trouble loading guns or loading magazines. It's because it is substantially easier. It's annoying to try and just repeatedly. Oh man,
right.
You're going to the range
you're gonna have
and then
a revolver. You got to have a speed loader, but
right. We go to the range and I'm like, I've got 17 rounds to load in this thing. Just give me the speed loader. I don't want to keep pressing into it. It's extra work I don't want to do. Yeah, I'd imagine the speed loader is going to make it much. Technology really does equal the playing field for women in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. But even a man with a gun versus a woman with a gun, 9 times out of 10, the man's going to be better. Like, people don't think that that's the case. But like when I took my testing to get certified, there was only one other woman with me. She actually brought her husband and had him like loading her magazines and stuff. I was like, this is cheating. I should have did everything myself.
Well, and men even have better hand-eye coordination. So when it comes to aim, I absolutely demolish my husband when it comes to stuff like that. But that's like very rare. Usually, it's like on average, it would if the best sharpshooters or whatever in the military, they are men. Yeah. And I know like that's one of the things where. There was this whole debate about should women be in the military? Should they serve in combat roles? I don't think so. But people were like, well, they can still fire guns as well and stuff like that. It's like, actually, no. Actually,
Well, and just because some women can do some things doesn't mean that all women ought to do those things.
It's the exception, right?
Yeah,
and then it just proves that women need men. And back to this post, like all the men commenting, it's like, okay, well, who's really to blame for feminism if men, these simps, like allowed women to have this power? And how do we actually combat feminism today? Because like you said, women are controlling the emotions and they're the ones driving this hysteria and making the men vote this way and enforce these things. So really it's up to the men. And I saw your husband talk about how men need to create like men's rights advocacy groups in Washington.
They've had them for over 100+ years. The first men's rights advocacy group was in the early 1900s. The reason that it's so ineffective is because women are the biggest swing voters. Yeah. And so like that's why I would say women are more responsible for feminism, because most men do not have political power other than one vote. And even if they do vote, women will always outvote men because there's more women than men.
I do think though that part of the reason that women, I would say that men they need to have higher standards when it comes to women. I do think that if women, like the reason why so many girls are on OnlyFans or are whores are because men still sleep with them. They're paying the OnlyFans subscriptions. And I know it's easy, like this is not what's happening. This is what they ought to do. But if we ever want to change the culture, we have to start somewhere. And I do think that if more men's advocacy groups arised and more men were like, I'm not going to give women and feminists the time of day, if they're pro-voting, if they're feminists, like make it so unfavorable, bring back shaming to such a high degree, as rabid as the feminists were, where they took over everything.
So I disagree with you. I think women want to be on OnlyFans because they enjoy being whores. So I've interviewed so many sex workers. They just like it. They get off on being naked in front of men. I don't think it's this like the men are giving that like.
But the men are there to be in front of.
Yeah, but they're also there to be in front of when they walk outside. And I see this when I go to Vegas. Women just get naked on the street. Like you see them, they have like stickers over women. I've never seen women fight harder than for anything than the ability to be naked and the ability to be whores.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's absolutely appalling, but I think men should have the discipline. And I know it's tough because I'm not trying to blame it all on men, but at the end of the day, it's like sales. It's like if there's no supply, if there's no supply.
But I'm saying even if there was no OnlyFans market, like women would still figure out. There's been escorts, prostitutes that's like the world's oldest profession. That's always going to happen. Well, but back to the whose fault is it? I think it's women. I think we're always bringing the blame back to men, but most women vote just because women had the opportunity to leave their husbands. They didn't have to pick it. And I think we're ultimately responsible for the downfall of society. Most men have very little to no political power other than one vote.
Isn't it then fair to say it's actually men's fault for allowing women to do these things in the first
Well, I
place?
think
Okay, so
that was the point I was making.
I want to actually break that down. So, okay, you go get married. Let's just say tomorrow you find your chick, you get married. And then she says, I want to leave you and I want to take half your business and your stuff. What do you do? No, don't do it. Well, no, I really want to. No, please don't. Let me go leave.
Right, but my point was pre-women's suffrage. It was men, it's patriarchy, and then the men go, I had an idea, let's divide power
Fine.
amongst women.
Yeah.
Couldn't you then blame men for being weak?
Fine. Maybe 100 years ago,
Failure
sure.
of
But I'm
leadership.
saying any person born today or in the last 50, most men didn't have anything to do with that. Like you weren't alive. I
Right.
wasn't
Sure, yeah.
alive. So yeah, sure. A few men you could say are responsible, but by and large, far more women have opted for this stuff. Far more women have gotten abortions. Far more women have gotten on OnlyFans.
Only women have gotten abortions.
And
Well,
because,
yeah.
like you said earlier, when women get power, they're terrible. They don't know
Terrible
what to
with
do
it.
because they have higher rates of mental illness. They're just way more abusive. They just are power hungry. So, because men allowed allowed them to have the power, and now women have the power, and look how terrible society is with the sexual revolution. And now it is because of women today and them having power. And it sucks because we can't go back in time. But what can we do now?
But that's my point. If we're gonna go like back, if we're gonna make the argument whose fault is it? Far more women are at fault than men because a very small percentage of men had anything to do with this.
But I kind of feel like the generations just have different problems.
Okay.
I mean, if you go back to the stark patriarchy, there's war, the bloodiest war, Civil War, World War II. There's bad things that existed under patriarchy as well. And so if you look at society today and you say, degeneracy and these things that came from the sexual revolution, these are bad things, but does it mean that it was there ever a utopian society? I mean, how do we weigh the problems today against the problems of yesterday? There were always problems we're trying to fix.
And
Well,
also-
I think the problems of the past were more due to lack of certain technology we have that improves things. So we often conflate the effects of the industrial and technological revolutions with the social revolutions, which feminism is by far the biggest and most significant social revolution of all time. It was not an organic grassroots movement. It was totally astroturfed. It was completely engineered. It was societal engineering. But I think this is my hot take, is that we're not going to fix this. We're not going to culturally go back. There's no going back. But what is going to happen is this is completely unsustainable. This situation, totally unsustainable. And here's why. Birth rates in South Korea right now are 0.78. In the United States, in the entire Western world, in fact, in the whole world except a handful of countries, it's well below replacement.
I disagree. I agree with everything you just said, except for there's no going back. I think what you described is going back. So when you look at the birth rates, yes, in the United States, it's below replacement, but look at the conservative birth rate.
Right.
It's not above replacement. It's not, but it's higher.
Yeah.
Which means that there is this dip happening predominantly among liberal groups
Yes.
and feminist groups.
Yes.
And it's much lighter against conservative groups, which means over a long enough time scale, conservatives rebound, liberals.
That's exactly what's going to happen. But I don't think it'll be going
Yeah.
back. It'll be a rebirth, and it'll look different.
Right.
And
Yes.
I also disagree that that's really going to happen because you can't make your kid be conservative. And I've seen kids in, maybe this is anecdotal, but I've seen kids with very conservative parents come out very liberal.
Right, well,
That
don't
is
send your
anecdotal.
children to
they-
college.
Yeah, they've
I-
actually done studies. If the greatest single predictor of what your political ideology is going to be is the ideology of your parents, there's
That's
there's-
before the age.
hang on.
That's before the age of 25. After 25,
There
the
is-
number one is your husband's.
There
It's your
is
spouse.
There is a genetic component to political beliefs.
Yeah.
People are uncovering more and more. But if you homeschool your kids, you definitely don't send them to public school. There is a good chance that yes, your child will be conservative, and if they get married, then that's
There's
Pearl,
go on.
you are correct, and I think you're going to agree with me. You said that you don't think it's going to go back because you can't guarantee your kid is conservative, but after 25, the husband is the biggest predictor. So-
Husband's number one. Second is
So-
where you live. Third is
Right.
parents. Yeah.
So let me bring up this image right here. This is just a couple of the data points that we've seen from various countries. Men skewing conservative, women
Yeah.
skewing
Correct.
liberal.
Yep.
So Pearl, what happens at 35?
Okay, but women aren't going to get married.
Right.
Wait. I want to, and women still have the most political power.
So-
go ahead.
Right? Do you believe that all women hold these views, I would argue that many of them are just following social trends.
Yeah.
I think that, do I think all women are liberal? No. I think some are, yeah.
I mean, of liberal women, do you think all of them inherently do believe this? I believe that when you look at the data from Instagram and TikTok, where women are, like young girls develop Tourette's from watching videos of Tourette's. They're very socially
Everyone's
influenced.
autistic now.
Yes.
So I think, here's my prediction.
Yeah.
When you look at men skewing conservative, and it's happening now, Gen Z, predominantly among men, very much moving towards Trump. It's this weird phenomenon we've not seen. Gen Z is considered to be the most conservative generation in 100 years, not because they're conservative. They're not.
Right.
But because it's the first time we've tracked slight conservative ticks. So typically, of the past 4 or 5 generations, the next generation is always slightly more progressive. Gen Z is the first time we've seen it sort of balance out and then move a little bit to the right in one area. So they're very similar to millennials, but whoa, it wasn't a dramatic shift. Here's my prediction. Men don't have a biological clock.
Right.
Men are skewing conservative. Men are going to be 35 and they're going to meet a 35-year-old woman on a dating app, and the woman's going to be sitting there going, I'm a progressive. And he's going to say, ma'am, I have all the time in the world. Have a nice day. I won't have kids with someone who's going to divorce me.
Yes.
This is going to do 2 things. The women who are only following social cues will immediately be like, I never actually cared about that. I want a family.
Right.
And the women who do really believe it won't have kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I don't-
here's
I would
what I
not-
was trying to say earlier is this is a self-correcting problem, meaning we're not going to have to go in and like rebuild the patriarchy. This is the patriarchy going, wait a minute, this was really bad. This was a bad deal. The sexual revolution was a really bad deal for men. Men are figuring this out now, and exactly what you said is true. Men can wait. They don't have to start a family before 30. And by the way, women aren't having children until they're 30, 31 years old now, which is why the birth rate is so low. It's not because people are having no kids. It's because we're telling all the women to spend their fertile years in college, going into debt and building a career. And then we think they're going to flip a switch at 30 and just start popping out babies. They have 1, maybe 2, because it doesn't make sense to have all that debt and invest your whole 20s in your career and then suddenly stay home with your kids.
This is what I.
But
this,
the men aren't
sorry.
gonna keep going.
Yeah, this is what I would predict in terms of outcomes. Young women have no evidence that they care what men want. When you poll them, they say that they care about men, like they care about traveling more. They care about other things more than men. If I had to predict what the future will be, I would say single parenthood, and I would say that IVF is gonna, and women are just gonna have kids older and older. It's actually gonna get to the point where they don't need a man. They can just get a sperm donor.
That's true, but I don't believe it will outweigh. I don't think the numbers can ever reach that point. Especially single parenthood will not be nearly as successful, as you pointed out, with crime and homelessness. These men that are becoming more conservative are going to make demands. And everything you pointed out about divorce, it's a really great point. A guy says, no fault divorce, you could just take everything away, and what's the point of getting married?
Yeah.
So that means you're going to get more and more guys who are shifting conservative, going on dates when they're 30, and they're going to say, you were really sweet, I really enjoy your time, but I will not date a woman who believes in no fault divorce and abortion. And this means that those women will have to go towards IVF. They won't have kids. If they don't have kids, then their line ceases.
But
They will adapt to the views of their husband.
But it doesn't.
Right.
We looked at the results of the 2020 election. Married women voted Republican on average. And this is something that is not that uncommon. White women also voted Republican.
Right.
Guess what? Majority, of all the social demographic groups, white women most likely to be married. Married women are conservative because men are conservative. And I believe, we've talked about service, guaranteed citizenship. What is the ideal electoral system? I think, vote per household led by the husband would be one good thing. But I think my husband firmly believes that if a man is strong and leads, women will follow. And I think that is also true in relationships. He has friends who are very, very right wing in Quebec, very liberal area. They do not have they are young, they're in shape, they have good jobs. They do not have problem, even this super libby area, finding women to date, because it's true. When you present yourself as the strong masculine man, you have these opinions, women follow.
But it doesn't matter what women say, it matters what they do. And if I had to predict in the next 5 years, again, the system is still the same. Women can still wreck men in family court. So why would it be any different the next generation? I mean, you can say what you want in the dating phase, and there's many women that do. I interview the husbands on the other side. They say one thing and they do another. 5 to 7 years in family court.
I'm just saying,
divorce rates are actually going down.
So the only reason it's going down is because COVID set the numbers off.
But look,
that's one. And the average time before marriage is going up.
And nobody's getting married anymore.
And no one's getting married.
Yeah, but no one getting married
none of-
wouldn't affect the divorce rates.